Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Gridiron 2025. Ron Poniewasz, Newcastle News sports editor, joined by Mr. Larry Kelly, who is a member of the Luxembourg, Garbutt, Kelly, and George law firm, an assistant basketball coach for Newcastle High under Ralph Blundo, and also a former Shenango varsity baseball coach, current assistant coach for Penn State Shenango baseball, also Holy Redeemer, former basketball coach.
Absolutely.
I think we've taken care of all of his tasks.
You've taken care of them all.
All right.
The Holy Redeemer Blazers. Never had more fun coaching basketball.
Oh, okay. I don't think I've ever known what their nickname was. So, all right. It's
the Blazers. Absolutely.
Just the Blazers, not Trailblazers or anything?
Nope. Just Blazers.
Just Blazers. Okay. All right. Well, Larry, welcome back. It is our final show of the year for Gridiron. And first off, this first segment is going to be, we're going to talk about the Laurel Spartans, who finished 12-2, and they got all the way to the WPIAL Class 1A championship game. And Larry, before we go too far, you probably remember this, and officially I was wrong, but I did tell you after like the second week when they beat Mohawk, this team's going on a run and they're going to go undefeated in the regular season. Again, I was wrong. Bishop Canavan got them, but I saw how good they were. So, this shouldn't come as too big of a surprise for a lot of people that they upset Fort Cherry, because they're a darn good football team. And they were right in it against Clairton, losing 8-6, where they could have won that game too.
They had a great season.
Mm-hmm.
They had a great season. I won a WPIAL championship being the head coach at Shenango. And I remember the next year at the banquet, we had another great year. We won the section for the second year in a row and made a playoff run. And I told them that the difference between a great season and a special season is this. It's this. There's the difference. You could hold your two fingers separated by half an inch, and that's the difference. And Laurel had a great season. And it was almost special. Winning a WPIAL championship and beating Clairton is special. And if you look back, there's always a play or two. Had it gone the other way, you probably, you have a better chance of winning the game. But, at the end of the day, I've lost some championship games. I have. It's not the final result that you will be talking about 10 years from now when these young men get together one day and they're having a beer somewhere. It will be the journey they remember, the journey that they took to get to that WPIAL championship game. And that's what you always remember. The final result, as trite as it sounds, is almost irrelevant. It's the journey you'll remember. It's what it took to get to that position, to get to that spot, to be given a chance to win the gold medal. That's what you'll always remember. That's what makes a difference in a young man or young woman's life and the coaches. It wasn't quite special, but they had a great, great season, and I'm proud of those guys, man. I'm proud of those guys.
Yeah. Obviously, they were right in it with Clairton. And when are those players and coaches, either of the two, going to be able to sit down and really soak it in and realize what they did this year? Is it instant, or does it take some time?
It'll take some time. After we lost the state championship game when I was the head coach at Shenango High School, I couldn't watch baseball for 3 weeks. I just couldn't. I couldn't watch it. But, by the time we got to the banquet, which, happened, before all the kids went back to school, it was just a love fest of everything that we had accomplished that year, a WPIAL championship, and, all of the memories that we created along that way and along that ride. It'll take a little while, but again, when they do sit down and start talking about it, they'll laugh, they'll joke, they'll hug. They had a great ride. They did. They had a great ride. They had a great season. And the difference between great and special oftentimes is minuscule. And it shouldn't in any way deter what they did accomplish. Coach Cooper, after the game, his words were so appropriate. They got a great program out there. They've had a culture that's gone on forever. Mike White did a piece in the Post-Gazette on George Miles and I believe his brother, who are still part of the coaching staff out there. Those are the kind of things that make your culture special. And that's what Laurel has.
Coaches might, sit down and absorb it a little bit more. They might soak it in and come to realize how special that season was sooner than the players, because the players immediately go on to winter sports, basketball or wrestling or back to their studies, obviously depending on what sport they play in, or if football is the only sport, hard to say, but there's really no transition period. If you're a winter sports person, you finish up on Saturday against Clairton. Next thing you know, you got, your wrestling coach, Kevin Carmichael, or your boys basketball coach, Ken Locke, saying it's winter sports time now.
Yeah. You're going to work on Monday in your next sport. And that's good. That's good. It helps you move forward. But they had a great season. But what Laurel does best is run the football. They ran it for 300 yards against Fort Cherry, and that's why they won that game. They struggled against Clairton. They ran it for 65 yards, and that's not who they are. That they run the football, and you got to tip your hat to Clairton. They were just a little bit better that day, and not a whole lot. 8-6. I mean, just a little bit better, but Laurel has nothing to be ashamed of. They had a great year.
Yes, they do. They have so much to be proud of. That's for sure. Had a great season. They lose some key players too. Lucas Santini is one of them, the quarterback. And it's strange how every year we're always wondering, this team loses this guy, this team loses this guy. How are they going to be? And it just always seems to be that these teams, they reload. They'll miss them for sure. They're seniors, but there'll be somebody that fills Lucas Santini's shoes, whoever that.
Yeah, those are big shoes to fill. I think my man's leaving the school with a bunch of records under his belt, as is Colton Carlson, who had a great year also. Mm-hmm. But that's what good programs do. They bounce back with different players who had the opportunity as underclassmen to watch how the seniors on their team take care of their business, how they practice, how they play, how they get prepared for the games. And they learn from that. And when it's their turn, they pick up the mantle and they go.
And one of the underrated things about Laurel is every year they have a great junior high program, and they're constantly playing for that Tri-County championship. And it's nice to see it pay off and, getting to the WPIAL championship. So, we're looking for those young kids to keep going, to come up through the system. And it's, like I say, it's nice to see that pay off in a WPIAL championship berth.
It's important, to have good coaching at the junior high level. It's hard to do because those games are 3:30. They're in the middle of the day. And, unless you're a teacher, it's hard to get off work to do that. But Laurel's had that type of program since George Miles was there. Then Jerry Holzhauser and now Coach Cooper. They've had that consistency in their program for years.
Absolutely. We congratulate Laurel on a 12-2 season, WPIAL Class 1A runner-up. Great season by the Spartans. And we're going to take a break, and we'll come back, and we're going to tell you about the other schools that made the WPIAL playoffs and how they did. So come on back here on Gridiron.
We all know there's an advantage to being the home team, to playing at home. And at LGKG, we have been your home team for personal injury cases involving automobile accidents and workers' compensation claims for over 90 years. At LGKG, over 10,000 clients have trusted us to represent them. We know how to present your case to a Western Pennsylvania jury. We know what makes them tick. We know how to win.
We're back with you here on Gridiron, and we are going to tell you about the other playoff teams. We had 6 total teams make the WPIAL or District 10 playoffs. We talked about Laurel in the previous segment. First off, let's talk about Newcastle, which finished 9-3 overall, a win over Montour in the first round. Very, very hard-fought game. They won by 1 point, I believe 14-13. Advanced into the second round down at Elwood City against Aliquippa. Came up short 14-0. Anybody's ball game. It was scoreless at the half, I believe. But what a great way to, debut for somebody like Marino Graham, a second year for Fred Mazzacco at Newcastle. Big things on the horizon for the Red Hurricane.
Another great season, almost special. There's a fine line between great and special. Aliquippa end up winning the WPIAL championship, so they can maybe take some solace in knowing that they lost to the eventual WPIAL champ. But if you look at the box score, Newcastle got outgained on the ground by 100 yards. And I still believe you can't do that. You have to be able to control the line of scrimmage in a high school football game. And, they had 15 penalties in a game. Again, in a close game, you can't do that. But they had a great season. They had 4 or 5 young men who were first team all conference, and Marino Graham was MVP in the conference. Jaden Schaefer, again, was first team all conference. And there was a bunch of guys. I think Chase Lemon was an all conference. DJ Gordon was all conference. I think Quaylen Davis, Mason Cook, these guys were all conference players. And I may be missing some. You would know who they were. So, Freddie got it going. He got it going. And again, there's a fine line between a great season and a special season. And Newcastle was really, really close to special. And, they got beat. The one thing that hurt Newcastle in that game, special teams, Quaylen Davis couldn't play because he had a dislocated elbow, and he's their long snapper. And they struggled in their punt game a little bit. That's hard to replace that guy. But, in a really what was a 1-score game right until the end, you can't make those mistakes. You can't have penalties. You can't turn it over. And your special teams got to be a little bit solid. But all in all, it was a great year. Great year. Second year, Coach Mazzacco, great year. He has the young men at Newcastle excited. He has the community excited about football. The crowd at the Montour game was probably one of the biggest crowds they had in a long time at Taggart Stadium. So Freddie got it going, and it's only going to get better.
Yeah. The offseason is going to be interesting, not from a standpoint of getting in the weight room and things like that, but this is a year that they're going to realign, the classifications. So from what I read, West Allegheny is moving up to 5A, and Central Valley is moving up from 3A to 4A. So Central Valley used to be in the Parkway. They used to be a rival of Newcastle. And if you go ahead and shift it around the way you think it would be, you would think Central Valley will replace West Allegheny. That makes the Parkway that much more difficult.
But Aliquippa may move down to 2A.
Yeah, who knows?
I mean, if they're realigning, they may move down. So nobody in the Parkway Conference would be disappointed if Aliquippa moves to a different classification.
Right.
Year in and year out, they're the gold standard of high school football.
Yeah.
But Newcastle had a great year. They really did. They've turned it around. And that's hard to do. And now it's just tidying up those little things that make the difference between being on the doorstep and knocking the door down to win a championship. It's going to happen here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and not only did they turn it around, it was immediate. It wasn't like, okay, here's a 5-year plan or anything. It was, right on cue, just right away.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Elwood City finished 7-5 after a 42-6 loss to Steel Valley. Steel Valley's been a perennial power, but Elwood City had a lot of guys to replace this year. Christopher Smiley at quarterback. They had to replace Elijah Palmer McCain. And I had said earlier in the season, I wasn't sure how good Elwood would be having to replace those two pieces. And here we are. We're talking about the playoffs.
You talk about turning a program around. Elwood City went through a period of 3 or 4 years where they either didn't win a game or won one game. And then all of a sudden, under Coach Bradley, I think it's Bradley, isn't it?
Yeah, and
2 years, 2 years in a row, they're playoff team. So they've done an amazing job down there also of turning it around. And it's hard to do, Ronnie. It's hard to do.
Yeah. Neshannock finishes 8-4 after they lost 36-9 against Fort Cherry. And that game was literally the week before Laurel played Fort Cherry. So Fort Cherry had 2 straight Lawrence County opponents.
Fort Cherry probably had the best running back in the WPIAL. And they had a big day on the ground against Neshannock. And again, they dominated the line of scrimmage. I don't remember the stats, but they outrushed them 3-4 to 1. And that's why it was such a credit for the next week for Laurel to run the ball for 300 yards against Fort Cherry. And Fort Cherry ran it for about 275, but Fort Cherry did not dominate the line of scrimmage. And again, if there's one factor in any high school game, at least in my view, that dictates the winner, it's who could control the line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively.
Right. Mohawk finishes 6-6 after a 42-7 loss to Seton LaSalle. However, the Warriors at one point about the midway part of the season, I don't think anybody thought they were going to the playoffs. They lost a game at Beaver Falls when a last-second field goal attempt drifted wide. Then they lost 8-6, and then next thing you know, they've got Western Beaver coming to town, undefeated Western Beaver, and then they just go on a run. They beat Western Beaver, and they kept on going from there.
Yeah, they had a nice run at the end of the year. Of course, Bobby Fadden's one of the best players in the WPIAL, so when you have him on your team, there's a pretty good chance you're going to win some football games. And they lost to Seton LaSalle. I mean, it's a Pittsburgh AAU team, so you never know what you're going to face when you play one of those schools.
Kind of wonder how things would have been different if Cash Stratton hadn't got hurt early in the season. Also,
second game of the year, I believe he was hurt
at Laurel,
and I'm not so sure he played the rest of the year.
No, he missed the rest of the way.
Yeah,
and I believe it was in the first quarter, either first quarter or early part of the second quarter.
Right.
All right, District 10, Wilmington makes the playoffs again in the District 10 championship game, finish 8-4 after not being able to stop Greenville late in the game, and they lose 25-22 to the Trojans.
Yeah, that was an upset, at least in my view. Wilmington's had a lot of luck against Greenville in the past several years. And, once again, Wilmington ran the ball well. Chase Mitchell-Tree had a couple touchdowns, over 100 yards, but they couldn't stop Greenville on the ground. Greenville had a big day against them on the ground, and that normally doesn't happen at Wilmington. They dominate the line of scrimmage, and they didn't get dominated, but they didn't dominate. They didn't control the line of scrimmage as they normally do, and give credit to Greenville. I don't think anybody saw that one coming.
Wilmington held on for the District 10 championship last year against Greenville. I think Greenville came up a yard short right there at the end of the game. This year, Greenville got its revenge and scored late in the game with maybe 2 or 3 minutes left to go. And Wilmington had a shot. They were moving the ball, but turned it over on downs. Maybe next year. How about we get the third year in a row, Wilmington and Greenville, and that one decides it. What do you think?
Well, it could happen. It could happen. It seems like it's the same 2 or 3 teams every year in District 10. There's not a lot of parity up there, and that's why I wish Wilmington was in the WPIAL. I wish they were. Apparently, Farrell tried to get back into the WPIAL, and once again, we're denied. I'd like to know the reason for that. Farrell was a WPIAL program, and they were part of the WPIAL for, 50 years. Why they don't let him back in, I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's got to be something to it, but at the same time, the WPIAL, has to just at some point just tell them, quit asking. You ask every year. We're telling you no for a reason. And here's the other thing: they go in to meet about it, and then right away they have their decision. It doesn't take very long. It's like they shut the door and say, okay, we're saying no, right? Okay, we're saying no. And they open up the door and say, all right, you're denied. Just tell them all automatically, quit asking.
Yeah, but I'd like to know why. I mean,
Right.
why? It's not like Farrell was an outlier. They were in the WPIAL for more than 50 years. And they had a proud tradition both in football and in basketball. Why wouldn't you want a team like Farrell to be part of your part of your conference? I don't know. I'd like to know the reason why.
Let's say they do put them in the WPIL. Let's say 2 or 3 years down the road, or even further down. What type of a conference, football speaking, would you want them in? Because they're so far, they're in Mercer County, obviously. Naturally, maybe Laurel, Neshannock's going up to 2A, I believe. So, you're going to have schools like Western Beaver or Cornell or somebody like that. Teams are going to have a further drive to that. Would that be a reason? Would travel?
Maybe it could be, but they should tell Farrell and the public the reason why they don't let them in. And maybe they did and I just missed it. I don't know. But you're right. They would probably, I don't know, or is Farrell a 1A or a 2A school?
In football, they're 2A.
2A. Would they be in there with Neshannock and Laurel and Shenango?
Well,
those are 20, 30-minute rides. That's
Yeah.
not that much farther than what those schools travel already.
Yeah, Laurel and Shenango would be in 1A. Neshannock's going up to 2A now. So you'd have Neshannock, Mohawk, Riverside, and then you put Farrell in there. That's relatively close. But when you start getting into like the Beaver County, Western Beaver, and places like that, maybe that's what they're trying to eliminate. I don't know. I don't know the answer any more than you do.
Yeah, right. I'd like to know, though.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then obviously, Larry, I sent you a link with a photo and a video from the Penn Trafford Moon game. We're going to talk about this. This will be how we close up shop here. Moon had the ball tied at 13 in a playoff game, and a Moon player along the sideline fumbled, and he was upright. There's a still shot of him fumbling, and as I mentioned, he was upright, and then the video along with it supports the fact that the referee got the call wrong. Now, Larry, if I was to use your phrase, make me the czar of the world. Playoffs, one challenge for each coach. A coach's challenge. No, it's not a booth review where you can review everything. You get one challenge. Use it right. That would have gotten overturned. Now, a lot of people will say, yeah, but there's the ESPN's not there. You don't have to have that. If you got somebody like LCAP or maybe a film crew on the sideline, whatever, from the WPIAL, hey, if you want to put in a shot clock in basketball, you're probably going to have somebody, horsing around on the sideline with a camera, that would have gotten overturned real quick.
Yeah, the referee missed the call. There's no question about it. But, not every game is televised or recorded. And, if you're going to do this, you want to be able to do it quickly. And the purpose of instant replay is to change obviously missed calls. The thing that gets me about instant replay, it takes them 10 minutes to determine if it was a fumble or an incomplete pass. Again, the purpose of that was to change an obviously blown call. My point is, if you can't tell upon the first look whether or not the referee missed the call, then go with the call that was made on the field. It's not meant to be looked at 10 times before you can figure out whether the call was correct.
Right.
So, look, I'm not against instant replay. That would have certainly made a difference in this game.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to have it consistent with every team that's playing. You got to have the ability then, if you're going to do this in the playoffs, to make sure that every team has the same opportunity to have a play review.
Yeah. Moon retained possession and went on to score the game-winning touchdown as a result of it. I don't know how I would have handled that as a coach. I really don't. Not in the moment. I'm talking after the game when you have the team. I'm not going to say they had them beat because it was 13-13, but when you get screwed out of a game, essentially, for lack of a better way of saying it, I don't know how I would handle that. I'd probably send a letter to the WPIAL. I'd send a letter to the PIAA. I know darn well it wouldn't have got overturned, but I'd have my say so. I don't even know if I'd want to talk to the media after the game. You know, if a reporter came up to me and asked me, I'd say, I don't have any comment, just walk away. Because, you know, there's nothing I could say that would be okay. You know, I couldn't say anything to the media that probably wouldn't get me in trouble.
Well, again, you got to be careful what you say. You know, what yard line did that fumble occur on?
In the red zone.
In the red zone.
Yeah.
You know, your defense still has an opportunity to make a stop.
Right.
And your defense still has an opportunity to create a turnover. And if they don't, you got to look at yourself also. You just can't point the finger at the official. You know, one play, one call normally isn't the deciding factor in any game, whether it's baseball, football, basketball. There's more than one play that decides the game. So you got to be careful how you address that. You know, the referee missed a call. And
right.
Simple. If they ask you about it, you know, what do you think? The referee missed a call in my view. That's it. But we still had a chance to stop them, and we did.
Yeah.
That's the answer to the question.
And the worst part about it is that the WPIAL was so fickle that they will suspend you for a game or two, you know, if you say the wrong thing to the media, which is why I would probably say, you know what, I don't have any comment, because I'm sure.
I don't agree with that either. I mean, people like to talk about free speech until you utilize free speech.
Right.
You should have the right to criticize an official anytime you want. You should have the right, as long as you do it professionally and within the bounds of what a high school coach, how they should acquit themselves. You shouldn't be punished for saying, look, the guy blew the call.
Right.
He knows it, I know it, and everybody else knows it. You should be able to say that.
Yep.
We live in the United States of America, and you shouldn't be punished. Again, somebody on the other side may say, well, I don't think he missed a call. I think you're wrong. Called free speech.
Yeah. Even when still photos and video support otherwise.
Oh, there's no question that in this case, based on what you told me, the referee missed a call. And I'm sure the referee's sick about it. You know, these guys want to do it, and they want to do it well, and they want to do it right. You know, when that guy went home and laid his head on a pillow and he knows he blew the call, that was a part of that was one of the factors in leading to Moon's victory. I'm sure he didn't sleep very well that night.
Right. Told you and showed you. That's you know, so you saw it. You heard.
There's no question. He missed the call. There's no question. And he was standing right there, according to what I watched.
Yep.
But it can happen. It just can happen.
Right. All right, Larry, that's Gridiron 2025 for us. We've reached the end of the line. Anything that you'd like to say as we close up shop for the year?
Listen, these young men spend so much time in preparing for the season, during the season, the coaching staff. As I said, Coach Mangino at Newcastle, I know how much time he spent in coaching up the Red Hurricane. And there's a lot of lessons to be learned, win or lose, as a high school athlete. You know, self-discipline, time control, managing your emotions, the beauty of teamwork and being on a team and being part of something that's special, that 10 years from now, you will, when you get together with your guys, you'll be talking about over and over again.
Yep. Fully agree. And we lose a lot of players to graduation, so they're going to go on to bigger and better things at the collegiate level, whether it's in the classroom only or if it's in the classroom and in football or any other sport. So they've got something to build off of. And these young kids that are coming back next year, we're going to expect them to be even better next year. They're going to get in the weight room and they're going to train and do all that good stuff. And we're going to have some good football next year too, Larry.
We always do. Lawrence County for years and years has had great high school football, and I don't expect it to change.
That's right. All right. He's Larry Kelly, a member of the Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George law firm, who also helps sponsor our show. And I'm Ron Poniewash, the Newcastle News Sports Editor. We thank you for joining us not only this week, but all throughout the season.
We all know there's an advantage to playing at home, to being the home team. At LGKG, we've been your home team personal injury attorneys for auto accident and workers' compensation cases for over 90 years. We know what works and how to win. We have all the credentials. At LGKG, we don't take every case. We handpick our clients so that we can give you the attention you deserve.